as different from ours as day and night. The Columbian Exchange, 1492 onwards. The arrival in the 1490s of the first Europeans in North and Central America reconnected ecosystems that had developed in isolation from one another for thousands of years. In the so-called Columbian Exchange, lives and economies that had altered only gradually over centuries were suddenly transformed by the influx of new crops, animals, technology, and pathogens. Many of the effects were unforeseen and misunderstood by both Europeans and American Indians at the time, but once the first landing had been made, there was no turning back. Food and farming. When Europeans began to settle in the Americas, they brought with them their own domesticated animals and foods. The enormous range included citrus fruits, grapes, and bananas, coffee, sugarcane, rice, oats, and wheat, and cattle, sheep, pigs, and horses. To cultivate their crops and pasture their animals, the settlers cleared huge areas of woodland, destroying the habitats or some native wild species in the process, and unintentionally contaminating American fields with the seed of weeds such as dandelion and sow thistle. The exchange in the other direction brought potatoes, tomatoes, sweet corn, beans, pumpkins, squash, and tobacco to the Old World, as well as turkeys and guinea pigs. The introduction of new staple crops transformed lives on both sides of the Atlantic. Potatoes and maize, carbohydrate-rich and easily grown, helped overcome chronic food shortages in Europe and, along with manioc and sweet potatoes, spread on to Africa and Asia. In the New World, wheat, which thrived in the temperate latitudes of North and South America and in the highlands of Mexico, eventually became a fundamental food crop for tens of millions of settlers. The arrival of horses in the New World was also revolutionary, permitting more effective and selective hunting, as well as facilitating travel and transport. Biological catastrophe. The most immediately devastating impact of the Columbian Exchange followed the introduction of new diseases into the Americas. The settlers and the chickens, cattle, black rats, and mosquitoes that accompanied them introduced contagious diseases to a people who had no biological defense against them. American Indians' immune systems were not adapted to cope with alien diseases such as smallpox, measles, chickenpox, influenza, malaria, and yellow fever. Once they were exposed to them, they began to die in the hundreds of thousands. Half the Cherokee Nation died in a smallpox epidemic in 1738, and some other tribes were wiped out entirely. European explorers encountered and brought back American illnesses such as Chagas disease, but the effect on Old World populations was negligible compared with the consequences of Old World pathogens in the New World. Exchange economics. From the start, the Columbian Exchange had a strong economic driver. Commodities ranging from gold and silver to coffee, tobacco, and cane sugar were transported on a vast scale, mostly to the benefit of European traders and plantation owners. Very soon, slave trading became a key part of this network too. The movement of people from continent to continent in vast numbers provided a continual supply of labor for expanding new economies at the cost of unspeakable oppression, misery, and early death to many generations. The dramatic and irrevocable changes brought about on both sides of the Atlantic by the Columbian Exchange continued to shape lives for centuries. Cultural exchange. New World peoples were using Stone Age tools, had no wheeled vehicles, and few domesticated animals when they encountered Old World societies, who used guns and alphabets, farmed pigs, sheep, and cattle, and kept bees. The huge cultural changes that ensued, especially in the Americas, were complicated by the two societies' very different attitudes to the ownership of nature and property, attitudes that would have significant consequences for future American Indian-European relations. The arrival of the horse led to the emergence of a new, nomadic American Indian tribe that came to dominate the southern Great Plains. Christianity started to spread in the New World, some elements of which fused with pre-Columbian beliefs in the old Inca and Aztec territories. West African religion also arrived, while introductions such as literacy and metal tools and machines brought advances in education, agriculture, and the evolution of warfare.